For 20 years, we've been creating innovation in the CX industry, and now we're seeking out brilliant new perspectives on CX you just won't find anywhere else. I'm Richard Owen. Welcome to the CX Iconoclast. I first met Simon Lyons when he was head of marketing at Agreco, a multi-billion market cap UK company focused on renting power by the hour, so basically mobile power generating equipment. Simon was one of the pioneers in implementing NPS at the time, and the management accountability model that he put together with the then CEO, Richard Owen, is still basically taught as best practice. Simon has subsequently been working for Kingspan Light & Air and recently set out on his own as a marketing consultant, so now is the perfect time to catch up on changes that he's witnessed over the past decades since Agreco. We focused the conversation first on the evolving challenges and opportunities that modern marketing faces, particularly organizations shifting from strategic principles to a very heavy reliance on digital execution. Many marketing teams focus on lead flow and performance metrics, but they often lack the foundational skills to create long-term value. Misalignment that can lead to inefficiencies, higher cost to serve, and lower retention rates when targeting poorly matched customers. While metrics like NPS remain a reliable measure of customer loyalty, Simon shares his growing need for more nuanced KPIs, especially in pricing strategies and how you assess new product success. At the same time, artificial intelligence, no surprise, is revolutionizing marketing by automating tactical execution, generating tailored content, and optimizing campaign efficiency. Simon makes the observation that this transition does challenge marketers to redefine their roles, focus more on strategic direction and customer insights rather than simply tactical execution. Finally, we talk about whiskey, on which Simon's an expert. And I'm not just making this up. Not the kind of expertise I have accumulating drinking Manhattans in cocktail bars all over the world. Real expertise. I do hope you enjoy the conversation. Well, Simon Lyons, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the CX Iconoclast podcast. Let me start by taking you back a little bit to the first time that we really sort of met when we were engaging in customer experience. And this is the days of Agreco. And Agreco was something of a legendary British company, which perhaps a lot of people in the United States aren't quite as familiar with, although they might recognize the big orange power generators, which was sort of hallmark. And this was the era you were working for, I think Richard Owen was running Agreco.
Yep.
And you were one of the earliest companies to sort of embrace Net Promoter Score and get into it. And you were leading that as the head of marketing. Well, what got you into that? Why get into CX at all back then?
I mean, we were lucky in some ways that we'd just gone through a review which had been done by Bain and Company. And Bain were talking quite a lot around customer experience at the time. And between themselves and a company called Sat Metrics, which you may or may not remember, Richard, they were starting to talk about Net Promoter Score and that sort of stuff. I remember distinctly that moment where I said, this is actually a brilliant idea. And we're a busy company. My CEO, Richard Owen, was a busy man. He had a lot to do, a big turnaround, big job. And he was always kind of pretty busy. And I met him in the corridor one day. And I said, Rupert, just 1 second. He said, hey, what is it, Simon? We have this concept of why we can email and get information from customers and how we performed against what we said we would perform. And we can measure it against time and against other countries. And he said to me, Simon, why are you still here? Just make it happen. And literally, he walked away, and it didn't matter what it cost. He knew it was better than what we had. And then I set about doing that. And I did have to go through a lot of proof points at first in the company. I landed in Europe, and then the Americans were really cynical, and I had to go and prove its success before they accepted and believed it. And then actually, once you got in there, it worked. But it was a very early concept, and it was kind of, it was a bit of a risk. Rupert was a big fan of it, so having the CEO behind it was critically important. And I think maybe the turning point for me was when he said, okay, let's get this into the annual report. So it was suddenly a KPI that was measured by the City of London, by the Stock Exchange, for them to see how good or bad we're performing year on year. And when that was in the annual report, it changed everything. Suddenly the organization realized we need to up our game in our customer experience.
Now, I have a memory from those times, and as time passes, it probably means it gets further and further removed from reality. But I recall that there was this sort of management framework that Rupert talked about, which was the accountability structure for the company. And on one hand, there was this focus on financial performance, and if memory serves, it was all about meeting or exceeding financial expectations.
Yes.
And on the other axis, there was this sort of measurement of customer experience.
Yeah.
And it might have been something even he sketched out for us when we were in the London office at one point. But
Yeah.
but this very simple management idea that said you had to be a top performer in the company, you had to achieve both.
Yep.
And this, ironically, was one of the most powerful ideas that I heard. And I even look back now and think, God, that's still actually pretty brilliant. It's simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Now, you're going to burst my bubble and tell me my recollection is rather.
Your recollection is spot on. It didn't actually come from Rupert per se. It probably came from myself and a bit of work I'd done with Bain, whereby they had two axes. One was increasing profitability and reducing profitability,
right.
and one was increasing customer experience and reducing and having a poor customer experience. And we worked out the model I saw had got different business units within an organization. We just turned it into geographies. So we put then all our countries on this dot matrix. And it really came home one day how powerful it was when I was sitting in a meeting, maybe we were a year into it, and I offered the company a profit warning for Australia because their profit was very, very good, but the customer performance was really badly down. And my argument was you're going to have to spend money to get that profitability back in the future as you lose it. And therefore, I'm issuing a profit warning, probably for 2 years' time, maybe a year and a half's time for Australia. The finance director nearly fell out of his standing. That was his job, but it really, once we work that cycle, every quarter we put that data up and we show the businesses how well they're doing for profit and how well they're doing for the customer experience. And it was critically important. You need to be in the right direction and in the right boxes. And that worked very, very well as a motivation to improve your customer experience in the organization.
It's still one of the best ideas. And I don't think, frankly, there's been anything better come out over the last 20 years in terms of basic accountability. Because at the end of the day, you're balancing long-term, short-term customer experience, profitability. It's simple to understand. Agreco was very geographically organized, right? If memory serves. But also the nature of the product or service you sold was one where it was quite easy to, I wouldn't say abuse customers, but you certainly found a lot of customers who were in dire need of help because they needed power supply very short notice. The temptation was to basically make the most profits possible in the short term, sort of stick it to the customer a little bit, right? And so have a long-term perspective kind of was not logical short term from the way you could make most money.
Yeah, I accept that. And so one of the things that we did was, we would win business in the knowledge that that business would be needed in the future. So if we had to go and power up Nairobi, for example, then we did say, well, I want you for 9 months. We could win for 9 months. And as sure as eggs are eggs, they're going to want it for another 9 months, another year after that. And we knew that. And therefore, we celebrated renewal of contracts as an organization as much as winning contracts. Because the winning contracts, we tended to land and expand very well and did that extremely well. We provided a great service. But the vast majority of our customers would say, we don't ever want to work with you again because we're so bloody expensive. But hey, when you're in trouble and you need us, we'll be there and you can rely upon us and you won't get fired. And, we delivered a really good product. And I think that the customer experience and the NPS score showed that. And it helped us understand the business model and how to work the business really, really well.
So post Agreco, obviously that was some time ago. Did you find when you went out into other industries and other businesses that the same principles applied? Or was the experience as you started to move through other companies, and you now obviously consult to other businesses as well, that Agreco was unusual? I mean, how do you look at that experience in context now, given your experience?
Yeah, Greco, I think, was unusual in that I was given my head by the CEO to go and make this work, to apply it across the world. He put it up there in lights, and my job was to make sure that the system, the process worked very well. And you know, he was a real customer fan and a real marketing fan, although he didn't come across as such all the time. Whereas some of the other companies I've been to since, the Arton has, they may say they're more customer focused, but that necessarily have been. I think that marketing is still weak in business to business. I think that it's quite difficult, particularly in products and in services that are large organizations. You know, it's all about the deal. It's all about the deal, and marketing yeah, we've moved beyond bubbles and brochures. We've moved beyond the golf day, but it still takes a lot of work, and that's where marketing really needs to play a part at the big table. It needs to assert how important it is to make sure all decisions are grounded in the customer. That has definitely been the case.
I want to talk a bit more about marketing in a second, especially the impact of AI on marketing. But one of the comments you made, and sort of as we were discussing sort of prep for this conversation, it will shock people to believe that we do prepare for this in any way, shape, or form. But, was the idea that NPS is far too often just seen as a number that people are chasing. I think so. This is one of your observations. Do you want to elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of organizations go and they work out that they can get an NPS. They work out they can do a really good audited process, that NPS is as good as it can be, is as robust as it can be. And they go, here's your scores last year, here's your scores next year, and that's good. And they're happy with that. And everybody goes and says, well, actually, we need to improve, or we need to be better servers and customers. And not enough companies drill down and go into, where have we let the customer down? Where is our pain points? And then go through the whole closed loop, the whole closed loop process. How are we going to prove that? And this is where I will come across a lot of hassles. I think marketing's job is to put the customer at the center of the business. And if it means leaving your marketing aegis and your marketing power base and going into operations and markets and getting in other people in sales and getting in their faces, that's your job. I think so. If you had the knowledge that we are very poor at points 2 and 3 in the customer service scale, of customer service kind of journey, then it is marketing's job to go back to business and say, you're bad there. What are you going to do about it? And not enough marketers do that. And when they then, and you let them tell you, be very gentle, like a confession. Yeah, tell us, lads, tell us everything. And they'll say, well, we're doing this badly and that badly, and we need to do this, this, and this. And you go, okay, when will you have that done? Oh, it'll be 4 months' time. Okay, well, we'll review it in 3 months' time. How are you getting on, and whether you have improved it or not, and closing that loop. And I think, it is marketing's job not to stay in marketing. It's marketing's job to wade in there and to understand and make change happen. Marketing, to me, should always be the drivers of change in the organization around the customer. I don't think that happens enough.
No, I don't think it happens much at all, to be honest. I mean, I think that a lot of marketers would say their job is to fill the top of the pipeline. Right? That's the dominant criteria. And I wonder whether or not, what you're talking about in marketing is, has that gap been filled by other organizations? I guess it opens the question is should CX belong to marketing at all? If marketing does embrace it the way you're describing, I totally agree. It makes a great deal of sense. But if marketing is going to sort of see themselves as top of the funnel type organizations, then I don't think they're the logical home to think about this. And you need to find somebody better, don't you?
I agree totally. I think that if you look at, I tend to, in my head, I look at businesses and go, what is our revenue last year? What is our revenue next year? So what new customers, what new products, new customers are we going to increase the prices? And then what activities are you going to push through in each of those boxes to deliver what you say you're going to deliver? But the 90%, if you're going to grow 10% next year, therefore 89% of next year's revenue is this year's revenue. So what are you doing about making sure that keeps on coming in? And it's it's where the money is. It's kind of Sutton's law.
Yeah, I think that a lot of industrials, and this has been slower in business markets than it probably has in consumer markets, are realizing that actually the money is downstream. It's repeat purchase or it's service operations.
Yep.
Let's face it, most manufacturers today have larger, recognizing there's real profit pools downstream in service contracts, and that's essentially a repeat business, and you
Yep.
can build up subscriptions as opposed to the original sale of the product, which is very competitive and
Yep.
very hard to squeeze money out of. So
Yep.
we should be seeing a shift in manufacturing and business to business to caring more about this. But it's been slow on the uptake. Maybe we're just at the dawn of this new era. Can hope.
I think it's possible that marketing is very poor at marketing.
Yeah.
It could sell itself better. At board meetings, it shouldn't be about more blue. It should be about profitability. It should be about making more efficient and making customers sticky. And everything should reverse back into those areas. And I don't think it happens. It becomes airy and fairy and gets separated from the numbers in the business. And by the numbers, I mean the profitability of the business. And marketing should be able to wander its way up and down a P&L very well by product or by area, by location. And if it can't, then it's always going to be more blue in organizations.
So we've had a number of great guests over the last year, top executives from companies talking about the importance of exactly what you're describing. But I think that either that's not getting translated into actions or direction for the marketing organizations, or the skill set just doesn't exist. We've essentially got a generation of marketers who are growing up in digital marketing. They've grown up in, Google Analytics, tracking search performance, tracking, and that becomes a discipline of itself, and it's very time consuming. Mm-hmm. Sales teams are screaming at them for better flows of qualified leads. Yep. And so there's a temptation just to become myopically focused on this topic of better digital execution, better lead flow, at the expense of just about everything else. Now, I'll give one other thought, which I'd interested your reaction to this. A lot of the reasons companies end up with unhappy customers is because they're so unselective about who they sell to. They don't think in terms of ideal customer profile as a customer that will repeat purchase for the next 20 years. And frankly, be a low cost to serve when they do. They sell to people who are going to be poor customers, bad fit for the product. Would you concur with that?
Absolutely. I think, the more I go into the consultancy area and look at companies, it is the product market fit that is, it's not misaligned, it's loose, if that makes sense. So if your target market is too big by 50%, you're ending up spending money chasing customers that are never going to be who you want to get. And if your product is not tied to those customers, your proposition, your sales proposition, will be too woolly, and you'll lose half of its strength. But you put those two things together as a bad product market fit, and you're working at 25% efficiency. That's not good. Good marketing is all about sacrifice. It's about saying, no, we're going to go narrow, we're going to go tight, and we're going to go hard. And we understand those customers really, really well. And then you can land and expand. But until you know those customers really, really well, it's very, very difficult. So I'm right behind you on that one. And maybe go on.
No, complete your thought.
No, maybe it is a part of an earlier. Marketing is a philosophy. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of getting the organization to think in a different way. It's not a set of tools and instruments and people. And I think marketing in that way, as we've just discussed, is the way people should be thinking about the business. And you need people at the top table that are convincing the CEO and the sales director to think in those ways. And that's not happening because the people that are coming through don't have that. This sounds like an ages thing. Don't have that grounding. They've come straight into digital. They're really good at it, and the average. I mean, they're way beyond me in this digital stuff. It's really, really interesting, and it's really, really hard to get, to be quite frank. But having said that, the big picture stuff, they miss that a little bit, I think.
Well, at least my observation around this product market fit and is that, as you said, trying to go for too big a target market sort of distorts the fact that at the end of it seems appealing, right? Because you can run the math. And the
Yep.
old
Yep.
saying, if I could sell everybody in China a Coke, I'd sell a lot of Coke, right? So the
Yep.
temptation is to start with the biggest possible
Yep.
numerator, and
Yep.
basically then we're going to end up with a big number. I recall that when Peloton went public, they described their addressable market as anyone in the world who exercises. I may be paraphrasing here, but I remember thinking, okay, that might be a little ambitious.
Yep.
It's a stationary bike. You may want to ground yourself a little bit more, because
Yep.
the irony was, I mean, I saw that audience. I hasten to add, I am not a member of this audience.
Really?
Thank you. You're supposed to chip in and say something different.
Oh no.
The idea, I think, there was that they're offering a very sophisticated product for a group of people who get enormous utility from that interactive style of exercise in a group setting, but done from their home. You could really
Yep.
narrow that market and say, I know who these people are. I have a very high value product for them.
Yep.
And I know they're going to be delighted with my product and not return it or leave it on the shelf like some other people I know, like a friend of mine would do. But instead, they sort of either by desire to create a bigger story for Wall Street, which I think is a very big motivator, or lack of focus, so define the market too broadly. And then not only does that seem to drag down your acquisition efficiency, but it kills you on the back end because you've got a bunch of customers who are poor fit.
I agree totally. I mean,
How was your Peloton experience, Simon? Was that very similar?
No, I haven't. Well, I prefer golf.
Let's talk about AI then in terms of marketing, because the most overhyped and yet still high potential story from the last 2 or 3 years, I think ChatGPT kicked everything off. And one of our friends who writes a cartoon, the Marketoonist, if you've ever seen Tom Fishburne's cartoons, had a wonderful cartoon where he showed marketing department debating the use of ChatGPT or generative AI technologies, and the punchline was, what exactly are you doing with the technology? Well, I'm just building pictures of things right now. That's the full extent of it.
Yeah,
but that can't be it, right? There's got to be more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know me. I'm not going to fall in line with people's views. I think overhyped is a pejorative. I think that it has got a lot of potential. I think it's got great potential. The question becomes, so what is it? How does it change your life? And it is changing. It's changing at 2 levels. I think it's changing from a marketing perspective at a very simple content level, creating great content, creating relevant content for different audiences. It's creating visuals around that content, and that's pretty good. And if I go back to even recently, my recent employment, we spent a lot of our time writing up stuff and rewriting it, and then doing it in French, and then that's all gone. And so I think from a cost-based perspective, it's eating into marketing. But that to me is not the game. What I'm seeing happening at the moment is very intriguing. So we're losing marketing as a principle, and we're losing the IP of our own products currently. What's happening if you're in a large company now and you've got a £20 million ad spend, you go to Meta and you say, here's £20 million, I want so much activity and whatever that activity is. Meta go, fine, no problem at all, leave that with me. They then go, okay, well, we do, let's say it's Guinness. We're selling Guinness. The target market is 43 to our IP. It's going to be, our message is, makes you a better, authentic person. And we have a nice ad with some guy on a surfboard. Happy days. Off we go. They then go, well, thank you very much for that. That's nice to have that framework. But they're then saying, well, let's look at other audiences. And we used to do old A/B testing in the old days. It's now A to N. They will take, let's say, 5 different target markets: young women, sporting guys, whatever, happy people, Peloton users. It doesn't really matter. And then they go, okay, fine. They use AI to generate those. They use AI to generate different propositions for those positionings. It then produces AI to use different content, and it creates different media. So suddenly, even looking at 5 variants of an offering on the 4 stages of from your brief to the customer, you're suddenly at 60 variations on it. Now this is where generative comes into generative being generative. What happens is the output from that goes, well, actually, we've been chasing 18 to 30-year-old women that are out drinking white wine at the moment, and this message works really, really well, and the return is even better than where you are. And so what's happening is they're building markets that brand owners would never find in the old days of the old cold towel or write out the job, the marketing positioning. They're now doing that, and they're finding better CTAs and better response to CTAs than was originally designed by the marketing guy. The IP in that is owned by Meta. So Guinness no longer knows what the message is, who's buying it, unless they go right down unless try and get the data from the bottom end. And so all that intellectual property about marketing is now being spun out through AI by Meta. And if you look at Meta's profits, that is absolutely why they're making a shed load of money. And I think that is it a threat? I think it's a better way of marketing. It's just no longer being done by marketers, it's being done by AI, and they're doing a tremendous job of it.
Well, and as far as the business is concerned, if it gets results, does the business care, right? I mean,
absolutely. But having said that, you forfeit that knowledge to Meta.
Yeah.
So you can't go to the next. I'll sell it to somebody else because they got to reinvent it all over again.
Right.
So the success, the owners of that success, is a third party, and that's the difference. The old days when I decided this is what we're going to do with Murphy's Irish Stout. This is the market. This is where we're going to go. Those days are over. Somebody else decides for you, which is the core of marketing.
Well, as we said earlier, maybe that's part of the driver for marketing just to redefine itself a little bit more broadly, because some sections of that are going to be replaced essentially by artificial intelligence or third-party technologies. And that gives an opportunity for marketing to think more broadly and more strategically. But it's a big skill set transition. It's a big mindset transition, right? And the weak link is always people. Can they catch up, keep up? And can leadership stay on top of this, which is a big challenge. You'd also been responsible, I know, for putting in place a lot of key performance indicators. You tried various ways of putting KPIs in place in the businesses you'd worked. Were there any particular insights associated with how you should best design KPIs, given what you're saying about marketing's role? Is that a new battlefield, figuring out how to measure and what to measure, in terms of the business performance?
I think the KPIs of marketing are. I think NPS is a brilliant KPI for measuring customer experience of existing customers, and I think it has lots of knocks and lots of flaws, but it's the best one we have. I think, a bit like democracy, it's the least bad one we have. And I think that if you look then in the other areas, you look at new business. I think once again I told you price increase. I think price is very badly managed by marketers. I think we haven't taken a grip on it. We haven't really driven change in that area. And actually, I saw an uplift in attention on the price post COVID, whereby suddenly there's a huge increase in costs. Businesses were saying, "Oh bloody hell, our cost base has gone to boot. We need to catch up with it." And suddenly we see pricing in the market, and it was good selective pricing. I'm not sure whether it was true of everybody else, but actually I think the pricing needs to be better managed, and KPIs around that are no longer to be, I want 5% increase in the market, I want 20% increase in these customers, 15% in those, and actually keep those the same, and much more granularity in around that. And in terms of new products, I think that it's always been impossible to produce KPIs around new products. You can't process your way out of it.
Well, I'd like to end on a somewhat different note. You had a long career in the whiskey industry, and for a while used to blog extensively about that. And I remember that you told me at one point that all the really good work was being done by the Japanese in the whiskey industry. I think it's about the time when the bottle of your average Yamasaki started to skyrocket. What's going on in whiskey now? Should we be drinking Japanese, or the Scottish catching up again, or is it your native Irish? Where's the best drink?
I don't remember that conversation.
You're denying it. You're denying it now.
I think you might be leading the witness here. Just trying to drive me mad. I think if I look at a Scottish whiskey and Irish whiskey, I think they've gone through. There's enormous price increases in Scotch whiskey. It's gone through the roof. I remember, and let me see what I'm going to say. So, I think Scottish whiskey is still an outstanding whiskey. I think if you give consumers blind tastes, they tend to edge towards Scotch whiskey. Irish whiskey has managed to own that space in the customer's mind around smooth, which is a powerful place to own in the consumer's mind. And smooth because they don't have much peatiness involved in it, apart from one or two reasonably small brands. So you've got a smoothness owned by the Irish. That's quite nice. And they've got a nice position in the consumer's mind. But the quality positioning is still held by Scotch, and it's rightly held. These guys work long and hard to do it. I mean, there's two issues. One is that in order to have malt whiskey that is 40 years old, you got to lay it down 40 years ago. Now, you and I 40 years ago were children. That's a long, long time into the future, and therefore there are a lot of large companies taking lots of big gambles in keeping whiskey in stock, and maybe the market changes. So you see it in Bordeaux in the wine industry, whereby people have got tired of big, strong, sticky Bordeaux, and so the whole market in Bordeaux is falling off a cliff, and consumers are rightly moving and choosing other products that are more accessible, easier to drink, and lighter. And I think that's an issue. The other issue I'm seeing in whiskey is a lot of gin companies started up in the last 20 years. They do a bit of whiskey, and then they make gin to bring in the cash. They're not coming to the point whereby the whiskey is starting to come through now, and it's starting to go into the market. Now, the valuation of those startups are all based on the filling price of 3-year-old whiskey. That filling price of 3-year-old whiskey is now starting to plunge, and the market valuation of those distilleries is now in a bit of difficulty. So it's going to be interesting times for whiskey going forward. I mean, I think.
So what are you drinking? Scotch?
I haven't drank much whiskey kind of generally in the last 10 years. I like Scotch, but I'm a pint of Guinness man myself. I'm not
I think that says it all. I think that.
And that, my friend, is the end of that.
That really is. Simon, thank you very much. It was wonderful catching up, and thank you for your observations. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Morris.
Thanks for listening to the CX Iconoclast from OCX Cognition. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you won't miss any of our thought-provoking conversations. And please get in touch if you want to learn more about what OCX Cognition's predictive CX analytics platform can do for your business by providing complete insights into every account, continuously updated and connected to operations. You'll find contact info in the show notes.